Ms. Pingree for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to voice my strong opposition to the Trump administration's proposal to lift a decade ban on offshore oil and gas drilling on our country's Atlantic and Pacific coasts. This proposal has to be one of the most irresponsible actions of the Trump administration. Currently, 94% of the outer continental shelf is off limits to drilling, and rightly so, given the importance of the economic and cultural value of the country's coastlines. The Trump administration has offered a staggering reversal, proposing to open up over 90% of the outer continental shelf to oil and gas drilling. While governors and lawmakers from both parties have risen to voice their opposition to this plan, the administration is moving forward at a breakneck speed. It has given a mere 60 days for the public to comment. In my home state of Maine, which has much to lose from this plan, we don't even get a full public hearing. This proposal's lack of transparency and fairness couldn't have been more apparent than when Governor Rick Scott of Florida somehow earned an exemption for his state. Everyone can see that this was less about protecting Florida's pristine beaches and coastline, as Governor Scott said, than a political favor from President Trump. I absolutely have nothing against the Florida coast. But your state shouldn't have to be home to Mar-a-Lago to earn an exemption from this awful plan. All coastal states deserve this protection. My home state of Maine is one of them. If you measured every inch of our state's jagged coastline and islands, it would measure an incredible 3,500 miles. Those miles include some of the most beautiful places in the world and critical habitat for hundreds of species of fish and wildlife. The coast is also dotted with dozens of small towns, filled with hardworking people who depend on a beautiful, healthy ocean to make their living. Two of my state's largest industries are tourism and fishing. Tourism in Maine is a $5.6 billion industry, 71% of which comes directly from the Maine coast. Millions of people visit our state to experience our beautiful coastline, snug harbors, and stunning landmarks like the Marshall Point Lighthouse in Port Clyde right here. Our fishing industry and the businesses that support it have even more to lose from this proposal. 30,000 Mainers make their living in marine industries. They include boat builders, ground fishermen, clammers, seaweed harvesters, oyster and mussel farmers, and of course, lobstermen. Our world-famous lobster fishing industry alone brings in $500 million annually. And I have had so many discussions with the lobster fishermen who tell me about all the difficulties their industry already faces. They want to pass their businesses on to their sons and daughters, but they worry about the future. The Gulf of Maine is already warming at a rate 99.9% faster than the world's ocean waters. Will it remain a prime habitat for lobsters? Will ocean acidification harm the lobster population and shellfish in ways we don't already know about yet? Do we really need to add the potential of an oil spill to the list of things that already keep them up at night? In Maine, we know the risk because we've seen the consequences. In 1996, a tanker named the Julienne spilled about 200,000 gallons of heating oil in Maine's Casco Bay. It cost over $40 million to clean up and caused lobster prices to plummet. But 200,000 gallons is a drop in the bucket when you talk about the spilled oil from the Deepwater Horizon, which spilled 200 million gallons into the Gulf of Mexico. The result on the marine environment was devastating. Shrimp, crab, oyster, and other fisheries in those states may never fully recover. The risks of this proposal to my state and others are simply too great. And for what? Our nation is already the top producer of oil and gas in the world, and with fuel prices currently low, this proposal would not boost the economy. If this administration is really worried about remaining internationally competitive in the energy market, it should throw its support behind developing alternative energy sources instead of abandoning them. This proposal is unacceptable and irresponsible. I will continue to fight back against the environmental and economic harm it threatens for Maine and the nation. I am proud to co-sponsor legislation with my colleagues in New England to prohibit drilling off of our states, and another bill to keep the drilling ban in place entirely along the Atlantic and Pacific coasts. I encourage my colleagues to do the same and stop this terrible plan before it's too late. I yield back the balance of my time.